Peter is the real-life story of the prodigal son. There's a unique connection between Peter warming himself around the charcoal fire in John 18 and Jesus by the charcoal fire in John 21, and that ties into all of this. I've been a Christian all my life and I haven't seen this until now. But first I want to show you how Peter failed in his own words early on in his discipleship and how that was his redemption later on, just like the prodigal son. There's so many connections, it's crazy. In his own book, Peter writes this, 2 Peter 1:5-7. Make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. Now this is essentially an anti-autobiography of Peter's early days as a disciple. So watch how the examples from Peter's early days in the gospel contrast are just exact opposite of what he wrote in 2 Peter. This is crazy. Ready? Let's start with faith. But when Peter saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, crying out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" Okay, we're off to a slow start, Peter, but let's try the second one. Goodness. When Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man." Well, that's not good. Let's try the third one. Knowledge. Peter said, "Explain the parable to us." "Are you still so dull?" Jesus asked them. We're still stuck at 0, Peter. Let's try self-control. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, he drew it and he struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Yeah, we're not doing too good. We're 0 for 4. And then we have perseverance. He returned to his disciples, and Jesus found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. I love that the disciples are all there, all of them, but he singles out Peter. It's like, come on, bro. Come on, everybody's sleeping, not just me. The next one is godliness. Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Yeah, it's getting worse. Last one, mutual affection and love. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? How much can I get away with here, Jesus?" And Jesus answered, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. Peter, you got a long way to go, brother. And so we look at the life that Peter talks about in his second letter, and we realize that he failed at every single point early on in his life. And that takes me to the meaningful connection between Peter and the prodigal son. Both represent themes of failure, repentance, and restoration. Jesus walking the shores in John 21 while Peter was fishing on the boat, days after denying Jesus to his death, paints such a real picture of the Father in the story of the prodigal son. Both Jesus and the Father pursue and run after the one who denied and rebelled against them. And let me tell you about the connection between the charcoal fire in John 18 and the charcoal fire in John 21. But first, here's a clear comparison of Peter and the prodigal after their rebellion. After the rooster crowed, Peter wept bitterly. In the same way, the prodigal son realized his error while feeding pigs, saying, "I have sinned against heaven and against you." Fast forward to John 21. After he was betrayed, beaten, crucified, dead, buried, and then raised to life, Jesus is standing on the shore calling out to Peter and the disciples. For me, this is the clearest picture of the Father in the story of the prodigal son. The son basically told the Father that he wished he was dead, took his inheritance, squandered it on wasteful living, and yet the Father was still out looking for his son. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." When Peter realized that it was Jesus on the shore, he had a choice to make. He very well could have sat there in his guilt and turned his heart off from grace. That's actually what a lot of us do. Peter had just denied the Son of God to his death. But Peter knew Jesus' character and immediately jumped into the water and swam to Jesus. Fully clothed, just jumps on in, just like Peter would. And Jesus takes the initiative to restore Peter. After breakfast on the shore, Jesus asks Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" mirroring Peter's 3 denials. Each affirmation from Peter leads to a commissioning, "Feed my sheep." Just like the prodigal son who returned home willingly, confessing his sin, the father runs to him, restores him to full sonship, and holds a feast. Peter receives both forgiveness and mission, a call to lead and shepherd Jesus' followers. The prodigal son receives not punishment, but grace, a robe, a ring, sandals, a feast, and fully welcomed as a son. Both Peter and the prodigal have a public restoration. For Peter, the restoration happens in front of the other disciples on the beach, highlighting community reconciliation. For the prodigal son, his restoration is also public. His father throws a feast and declares him alive again. Now, the charcoal fire in John 21:9 carries a deep significance, especially in connection to Peter's earlier failure. In John 18:18, Peter warms himself by a charcoal fire during Jesus' trial, where he denies Jesus 3 times. And in John 21:9, after the resurrection, Jesus prepares breakfast over a charcoal fire on the shore when Peter and the other disciples return from fishing. Out of the entire New Testament, the term for charcoal fire, in Greek it's anthrakia, appears only in these 2 scenes, making the connection deliberate. The smell and the sight of the charcoal fire in John 21 likely brought Peter back to his moment of failure in John 18. Jesus is gently but intentionally bringing Peter face to face with his denial, not to condemn, but to heal. The charcoal fire is the setting where Peter's greatest shame happened, but also where his restoration begins. At the first charcoal fire, denial and shame. At the second charcoal fire, forgiveness, grace, and recommissioning. By recreating the scene, Jesus leads Peter from regret to restoration, showing that the very place of failure can become the place of healing. The fire is communal. Now they're sharing a meal around the fire, so it's no longer a place of fear, but a place of belonging. Once breakfast is over, Jesus begins asking Peter, "Do you love me?" The restoration happens in the same exact environment as the failure, but this time it ends with Peter being trusted to feed my sheep. So imagine the charcoal fire as a symbolic mirror. In John 18, Peter sees himself as a failure, but in John 21, by the same type of fire, Jesus lets Peter see himself as forgiven, valued, and called. So the charcoal fire reminds us that God sometimes brings us back to uncomfortable places, not to shame us, but to heal us. Restoration often happens at the point of our deepest failure, and Jesus doesn't erase the past, but transforms it into a place of grace.